Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Bank of the West is offering the 1% for the Planet checking account. It gives back 1% of the account's net revenue to the planet at no cost to you. There's no monthly service charge with any deposit per statement, and there's no minimum balance required. The 1% for the Planet checking account, only from Bank of the West. Learn more at bankofthewest.com/1%. Additional conditions apply. Member FDIC.
The Bachelorette and Friends. From first love to happy ever after.
What's that?
From dating to dick pics.
Oh my.
Oh no! The Bachelorette and Friends. Oh, I love a good dick.
This podcast contains sexual references, coarse language, and adult themes from the beginning and throughout. It is not recommended for listeners under the age of 15.
Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to the Bachelorette and Friends. I'm your host, Carla Anita Matiazzo, and today's guest is performer Anton Schrama. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Much appreciated.
Now, tell everybody how we met, and you can be as honest or not as you like, Anton.
So, look, we'd probably met...
different memories of how we met. Keep going.
We probably have met face-to-face like once or twice before.
Mm-hmm.
However, my memory of this is very either fleeting or non-existent. However, we were reintroduced properly via a certain dating app because we're both single and we live in Adelaide. So it would make sense that we contacted each other via that way. But since then, I think, we could probably say that we've realized that it's very strange that we haven't actually gotten to know each other beforehand, given the social scenes that we both sort of work in.
Yeah, so I do remember meeting you after the play this year, 2020. So this is going to be coming out in 2021, but we're recording in November 2020. So I met you at this year's Fringe after you came off stage for Enterprise. So obviously I left a fucking lasting impression, Anton.
Well, look, you saw that show and how fast-paced it was. It's one of those ones that you sort of just have to. It starts, you hold on for dear life, and we do 52 scenes in 60 minutes, and it's just we then have to pack up really quickly, get changed, and get out of there. So
Correct.
Anything after for half an hour after I leave the stage door is a bit of a blur, really. So
yes.
I
know. Don't apologize. I'm the same. I'm exactly the same. So don't even worry. I'm only mucking around. It's all good. Guess what, lovers? The Bachelorette, There's Always a Catch, is back on stage in 2021. First up, The Mill, Adelaide Fringe Festival, from the 18th to the 28th of February, 7:30.
Tickets on sale at the Adelaide Fringe website.
Just to bring the listeners up to speed, this podcast is based on the premise of my award-winning cabaret show, The Bachelorette, There's Always a Catch, where I talk and sing about my first crush to my happy ever after, in inverted commas, and everything in between. So let's start there, Anton. Can you tell us about your first crush?
So in primary school, if there was such a thing as puppy love or dating or whatnot, I would have done a lot of it in primary school. I think I remember my first ever girlfriend, you could call it, in inverted commas. Her name was Amy Frugige. And it was year one, and we were in the back of Miss Cosgrove's class, and we sat very close to each other and held hands in between our crossed legs so no one could see. So
year one's quite young. How did you...
Year one is quite young, yes.
Yeah. So
well, I knew what I listened to my heart at quite a young age. But the thing is that, I mean, you could say, I reckon that wasn't my first crush, but it was my first sort of fleeting. However, if you go back even further into kindergarten, I actually dated 3 girls at once during kindergarten.
What?
Yeah. So one was named Amy. Another was named, I think the other one was named Sarah. And then there was Jenny.
Right.
Now, I actually then went to high school with Jenny, and then like we totally missed out primary school, and she actually recognized me and remembered me like 8 years later at high school, and she said, we were boyfriend and girlfriend in kindergarten. I'm like, you've got to be kidding. How do you recognize me? Seriously, I must have changed a little bit. She says, no, not at all. Like, that's gross.
Oh, you had all the.
I've grown a foot.
Is that what you're
No.
saying?
Year eight, I did not have facial hair. Yeah, no, that came for my 21st birthday. So, but I was a short blonde kid, so I couldn't have changed that much, apparently. But but I reckon first crush and possibly obsession when I was younger was Lorraine Steppert. She was this young, beautiful. Of course, I was both young. We were in year 2, but she was this gorgeous young thing, and not overly we didn't really have a popular group or a non-popular group, and I was always the shortest kid in the class, but probably the most charming of all, really.
Sure.
So because I grew up in the northern suburbs. And so the northern suburbs in the late 80s, if you could string a sentence together and had all your teeth, you were a good kid. But it's not much has changed. So you're thinking it. But
I'm not saying shit.
No, you're not saying shit. No, it's probably best. I can get away with this because I'm from the Bith. So, or Elizabeth, that's with 1 F. So yeah, I enjoyed my time in Elizabeth, but yeah, I was private school educated. So yeah, that's the way it is.
Excellent. So what happened with the year 2 crush?
Well, we dated for a bit. But this is a sort of you could go round and round really with it. So like Lorraine was probably the first crush. And then year 2 was Melissa Landers. Year 4, no, that's a blank. Can't remember that one. Year 5, Danielle. Year 6, what was her name? No, that's gone. So yeah, many memories of just, years. I used to have a sort of a major crush each year. And I was one of these kids. It would only last about 2 weeks with them actually in a relationship. And that would be sort of based around notes, hand holding, and me being very crafty and arty and making things for them on a daily basis. Melissa Landers was the one for that. I used to get pipe cleaners of different colors and actually sort of design little things and, the little hearts with the word love sort of in cursive between sort of each side of the thing with an arrow in between. Yeah, I was quite a crafty little kid. And, so I used to do those kinds of things on a daily basis and write little love letters and poetry and whatnot. So
do you remember any of the poems?
No, absolutely not. But they're pretty sure they were quite basic, not like Roses are Red or anything else like that. But, just, I don't know, 3 or 4 line verse things. So, yeah.
Very cute. So did that trend of being creative and writing love letters and poems and whatnot, did that continue through to your adulthood and through your teenage relationships?
I think in a way it did, only because of the fact that I've now with like dating apps and things like that, I recognize that because it's the text medium and you're getting to know someone and the judgment is there. You can't sort of hide it. Both, sort of males and females, you can't deny the fact that there is going to be a sense of either judgment or criticism based on whatever you write in each message. And so my main aim is to be as honest as possible, with a little bit of, sort of flirtation in there when I can afford to, but also, have your grammar correct, have your spelling correct. It's not that hard. Just be open and honest and as succinct as possible with the other person. And I think if you do that, then hopefully it's reciprocated and you can get to know someone by the respect they have for themselves by how they write, I think.
Yeah, well, that's a lovely sentiment, but it's very rare to experience that on those mediums. And that's why the last time I was on it for 48 hours and I was like, I've had enough. Yeah. Yeah,
we were lucky to cross paths.
Yeah, very lucky, very lucky. I'm definitely somebody who needs to be engaged by multiple senses. I find it really hard to build that connection just via text, if that makes sense.
100%.
So how then, for the listeners, Anton, how would you suggest people effectively use those apps? Yes, you've mentioned grammar and sentence structure. It's very important because it fucking
Absolutely.
is. What would your other tips be on those mediums?
With photo order. So with a lot of these things, you often have at least sort of 5 pictures that you can put on. And the first one obviously has to be fairly engaging. Don't have sunglasses on in any of the pics if you can help it. Don't have multiple
dudes, Anton, just on that, the amount of dudes that have sunglasses on is like 90%, 85 to 90%. Dudes have sunglasses on and all the photos are with sunglasses. I'm like, mate, I can't see into your soul. Take them off. Fucking annoying. Keep going.
The first one, only have yourself in the first photo. You can have other mates and things like that once you've established that's who you are in the first photo. So when they start scrolling through and they go, okay, I can identify him now or her in the other photos. So somewhat engaging, somewhat interesting, and possibly even conversation enticing within that first photo. So attention grabbing, or get them scrolling to the next one. And so the next one then has to be a lead on point. So make it even sort of more interesting if you've got a photo that sort of divulges. And please, this is from my experience, if you are a person, my interest is in women, and but if you are a person on there, do not have the same pose in the same frame of yourself in every single photo. Why? I don't get it. I just don't get it. I'm seeing the same photo on repeat with different tones. And please, girls, you are beautiful. You do not need filters. Oh my God, please.
Would you say that? So when I used to be on those things, I would probably 98% of the times that I have dabbled in that medium, I would make sure to put one picture with no makeup on, because the only time I wear makeup is at an event or for show reasons, because I can't be bothered.
Yeah.
And I don't like the feeling of makeup on my face. So the reason I used to
Neither
do that. Yeah, fair. The reason I used to do that was because I wanted people to see what I look like.
Like, if this works out, this is going to be 95% of your time with me.
Correct. Correct. So yeah, I understand why people put the filtered photos up. I understand why people may do the one pose with different shades because they think that's the best photo of themselves. But look, it's, in my experience, the apps are not going to generate, for me at least anyway, the man I marry. Like, that's rare.
And that's not the reason I use them either. The main reason I use apps like these, in most recent experiences, it's me coming out of a relationship. It's me not wanting to actually seek a partner or a future, sort of wife or anything else like that. But it's actually to re-engage with other people, not literally, but to connect with people and learn how to connect with people. Because after being in a relationship for a period of time, you are so comfortable and possibly even a little bit complacent as well with your own personality. And you have an unawareness of what is interesting about yourself, because you don't have to talk about yourself as often because the other person already knows you, and you don't have to explain things as often. And so if you are forced into a conversation where you have to generate interest about yourself and, sort of advertise what are the, attractive features, then it makes you realize what is good about you, how you present yourself, and to put the best foot forward in every situation in life. But it's just, I think it's mainly about my own self-awareness, but also to make real connections with other human beings. And you never know where that might lead, because, I didn't envision having, met yourself and then now being on a podcast. This is fun. This is an amazing experience. I don't get to do these kinds of things every day. And so I'm, just out of that, sort of chance meeting, I get to have lots of other experiences and talk to people like yourself and your friends, and, sort of no doubt we'll catch up in, the future fringe scene. Hopefully that happens. Who knows what can come of that and those real connections.
That's true. And it's interesting what you've said in regards to the self-awareness side of things, because I hear that a lot from my male friends in regards to online dating. It is a real boost for their self-esteem to some extent, whereas I hear from women it's not. Yeah, so it's interesting how different people and genders perceive the same medium, because I know for myself it causes me anxiety, causes me self-doubt. I just feel like I'm talking to, like, it's very rare to have somebody that is engaging in those mediums. Not impossible, obviously, but very rare. It's interesting though, like I said, how I've heard from a lot of guys, it is an ego, self-esteem booster, whereas for women, it's really not. Because also I think, and this is speaking from my experience, other women that I've spoken to in regards to this matter, there's a lot of text abuse if you don't comply with what the requests are that you are being bombarded with. There are a lot of dick pics, which, look, I've worked out through my conversation with Jacques Barrett, who's a comedian, and we were talking about how the porn trends are really about dick worship. That's why there's so much focus visually on dicks when it comes to porn.
Right.
Like if you're looking at heterosexual porn, because we were unpacking this, because I'm like, why do guys send dick pics? Like, really, like the angles and it's not, when if girls send pictures.
I got a funny story about angles, but okay, cool. Yeah, go for it.
Usually if a girl sends, and I think I was talking to Jewel about this the other day. Was it Jewel? No, who was it? It was Alex. Anyway, it was somebody. We were talking about when women send photos, it's usually of their face and pulling some sort of sultry facial, expression. And then from guys, it's the under angle of the dick or just above the dick or on the side of the dick. Like, it's just...
Well, let's just put this right out there, okay? Now, to all the guys listening to this, right? There is no angle that makes your dick look good, all right? It is one of the most ugliest features out there. However, when you're in the moment with a girl, she thinks it's absolutely exactly what she wants in that moment. When you're with them, when you've gained their trust, when you've actually had an intimate moment, when you're actually sharing something beautiful with each other, that is when a dick can be glorious, when it's actually 3D, in the moment.
In the moment with the person, yeah.
With the person. There is no camera angle that will make a dick look good. Do not kid yourselves. You are not a porn star, right? The porn star cameramen know what they're doing. They know those angles. Don't try. It's just don't. Just don't. The context and the framing of just a dick without a body attached. Why? I don't get it. And this actually goes both, I enjoy the male and female form in all of its glory in lots of different ways. It can be beautiful. But put and photographed separately with different frames, they're just body parts. No, just don't. And I think... Because, I have been requested to, in the past, to have a, conversation about, show me parts of you, I'll show you parts of me, and, vice versa.
But
that's fine. All consensual, 100%. So, and it's not like I'm actually initiating these kinds of conversations. It's just flirtation gone mad. Before this, lots of other stuff. It's not just straight off the bat, hey, show us your tits, or hey, sort of send a dick pic. That doesn't exist, and neither should it. So, yeah, those kinds of things, it's built up, and that's, sort of very intense sexting, which can be quite good, but again, consensual, and it's not straight off the bat to an unknown person.
Yes.
So that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, right. And it's interesting, I had another conversation about dick pics with an American friend of mine the other day. And I was like, because we were talking about different stuff. We were talking about TV shows. We were talking about movies. We were talking about a whole lot of different things. And I was like, I can't even remember what the topic was, but I felt the need to say, don't send me a dick pic. And he's like, why do you feel the need to tell me that? I'm like, because our conversation is getting a bit heated, but I just want to make clear. He's like, Carla, I'm American. We got the memo ages ago. We know what's... Yeah. I was like, okay. He's like, really? Do you have... I'm like, yes, I've had too many experiences where we won't even be talking about that topic. And I will explicitly say, do not send me a dick pic. And I get one. And there's been times, and I can't stand it. I don't want them. And I think I was talking to another friend the other day, and she was like, it's like dudes have a folder in their phone of some guy of their dicks, because this guy sent her the same dick, same position, same background, same whatever, exactly the same photo, like a couple of weeks later. She's like, I've already seen this dick. Do you have a folder full of your dick? Like, what the fuck?
Do you have another dick that I can use? I'd like some variety.
I'd like some companion contrast.
Do you know what would be good, right? And I think this would be add to the fun of dick pics. If Snapchat could do anything is to create filters that could recognize when it's a dick. Like put a Mexican, like sort of sombrero hat maybe on them or something, or googly eyes, or, just, sort of Dracula kind of, sort of teeth and eyes with a cape and things like that, just to make them a little bit more interesting and intriguing, and add to the humor that is a dick pic. Because I swear, whenever a girl gets a dick pic, it's either eye roll, immediately followed by laughter. And as a guy, the last thing I want is for a girl to associate my penis with laughing at it. So even if it does, by any strange coincidence, that you manage to send a girl a dick pic and weasel your way into a date and an intimate situation, that she then sees the girl, oh yeah, I remember that. That was hilarious. That's not what you want.
My understanding is it's different in the gay community, as in boys and boys. That's a different playing field.
Oh, I can't, talk.
Yeah.
Because I have absolutely no experience about it, but I've heard similar.
Yes, yeah. So we're just talking about heterosexual couples here, peeps. Say the girl was like, I don't want any dick pics. I'm going to get to know you properly. And the guy sends a dick pic. How the fuck does that guy think that anything is going to go further? From the conversations I'm having with this podcast, I'm learning a lot of stuff. A lot of different perspectives are coming on, which I'm so grateful for, and I'm fucking loving learning all these different things, and shifting my perspective a little bit through the things that I'm learning that I think fit with my worldview and whatnot. I think it ties into the history of heterosexual relationships and the way that men's anatomy is worshipped in porn. Because kids growing up today, they learn all that sexual stuff through watching that crap. And it's not how it goes. It's not how it goes. Those stories that they play out in porn, it's not how it goes. And
I don't know. Every time I get a pizza delivered, I'm a bit wary. So.
And the whole dick worshipping thing, I think that does play into the whole guys think that women want to see their flaccid, hard, ready to go appendages.
I really got no comment on that, because one, I don't understand, like, the whole dick worshipping comment. I really can't comment on that, because I mean, it depends probably on the porn you watch, as well. But then you've also got, like, in my experience of pornography, I would say, yes, there's a certain focus of the dick, but seldom do you actually see the guy's face in any
That's
of
what
the
I mean.
porn
That's what I mean.
as well. So you're just saying, like, it's not about, so it's definitely sort of about the woman.
We see the whole woman, but we rarely see the whole man.
True. Yeah. Okay.
I
see what you mean by that. Yeah, I see what you mean by dick worshipping now, as in, like, the actual man himself is actually not important.
Correct.
But the, sort of size, shape, and, thrusting nature of the penis within, the involvement with the woman, that is.
Yeah. I only learned this from a conversation I had on the podcast. Pardon?
I never really thought about it like that. How it's actually sort of dick worshipping.
The focus.
I've never really considered it, but I don't focus on the dick. I have one of those. I've seen one. I know it exists, but I mean, I've seen lots of women too, but sort of, it's mainly the woman's facial reactions and sort of sounds and sort of what can excrete during sort of sex that interests me. So, how things move. The human body is amazing.
Yeah. I hope you're enjoying this episode of The Catchalorette and Friends. Make sure you follow the podcast at The Catchalorette Pod on Instagram. And if you think your love journey is worth sharing with me on the podcast, send me an email, thecatchalorettepod@gmail.com, or slide into my Instagram DMs. Oh, and don't forget to give the podcast a review and tell all your motherfucking people to listen to the show. Now let's get back to this episode. So we've spoken about your crushes. So after the crushes, primary school relationships, I like to say that high school relationships are like training wheels, where you get to learn your boundaries, you get to learn what's acceptable, you get to learn a bit about your body. So what were the stories around your training wheel relationships?
High school, as far as relationships go, is a bit of a blur for myself. I don't actually have many memories of girls that I had a relationship with during high school. I think I am open and honest about the fact that I actually lost my virginity at the end of year 11. And so it was, I often describe this as probably one of the worst sexual experiences I've ever had. And you don't hear that often from a guy who is losing his virginity. But yeah, it was Christmas Eve during the day in my bedroom with my dad in the next room with a girl that I'd met once before that randomly turned up on my doorstep.
What the fuck?
And yeah, it just all sort of happened very quickly, but sort of a little bit controlled, but not. Yeah, I think I disassociate high school as far as sort of dating, because most of my dating was done when I was in theatre during high school. And so I don't, so I actually dated girls through doing musical theatre.
Right.
And whoever says musical theatre is for gays, seriously, if you're a straight guy in musical theatre, you are like gold. And there is you have abundance of choice.
Yeah.
So any advertisement for young people listening to this, one, why are you listening to this? This is a bit above your age. But two, also musical theatre. Let's, sort of get into it, meet some new people, make some real connections. You'll be surprised what you find out about yourself. But yeah, no, I think my first real love I had when I was in year 10. And I met her through musical theatre doing my second ever show, West Side Story. And that was sort of beautiful. The show before that, I had a bit of a crush, but, sort of wasn't love, but it was a lot of physical attraction going on. And I think, there's such a thing, and you would know this, show crushes. And so, you do shows, and you when you're single and you meet someone in the show who is also single and they're very talented, and sort of when you're interested in talented performance, you often get attracted to other talented people. And so people at my high school were, in comparison, not as talented and therefore less attractive.
Yeah.
So I think I had a few different relationships during my time during high school, but doing musical theatre is where I had them. But yeah, so when I lost my virginity, I was actually, because I didn't actually have a sexual relationship with my first love at all. And so when I did lose it, I felt like I was almost cheating on her, even though we weren't in a relationship at the time. And so it was a bit disappointing in that sense. And that was already a little bit of a turnoff. But, every guy that I've talked to hasn't ever had a first time that's lasted probably, in an extreme sense, more than 5 minutes. My experience was 25 minutes and I had to put a stop to it, and I didn't climax or anything else like that. And I'm just like, okay, this is obviously as good as it's going to get. And look, my dad's in the next room. I'm a little bit uncomfortable. Let's just stop. Yes. And she's like, she gets off. Oh, she was just like, okay, no worries, cool. And she was understanding about that. And she's like, do you have any regrets? And in my head, I'm going, yep, 100%. But on the outside, I was, sort of remained considerate. And I said, no, not at all, absolutely. And, sort of tried to I lied a little bit to protect her feelings in that moment. But she knew that I was a virgin at that particular time, but it was definitely not what I was expecting. But I describe it as her being a starfish on top, which I don't know as an adult and an experienced sort of person sexually how that it would even work. But it's what it was.
Thanks for sharing that. That's very open, honest, and vulnerable, Anton. That's really good. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. That's okay. But I guess that's, I count myself lucky that it was, consensual, and it was in an environment that I felt comfortable in as well, which is not the case for many people, and I dare say a lot of women. And I've got a lot of female friends, and it's very varied as far as first times go. I still remain grateful because it allowed me to sort of open my idea of what a sexual relationship is and the respect required to also have one as well.
That's fantastic. I'm glad you've spoken about that. Speaking of consensual stuff, because obviously there would be many more people that would not be reporting or sharing their experiences of being sexually assaulted. Do you think then, from the fact that you've got a lot of female friends and they would have shared, I'm sure, lots of different things with you, do you think there is more of that has happened than what is reported in society, in mainstream media, for example?
I think I've got mixed opinions when it comes to reporting such atrocities as that. You won't often hear about suicide in the media because of fear of promotion. And also triggering certain thoughts within other people to think, well, if everyone else is doing it, maybe it's not so bad. And, sort of they can feel maybe a bit more comfortable about their own suicide if it's reported in the media. I feel with the addition of social media and how that's communicated and the access to the internet and stories that are portrayed on there and the lack of filter that is actually applied to these types of subjects and access that a lot of people have to it, then there's almost a numbing or it's sort of oversaturated amount of this kind of information on the internet and in the media and whatnot that they look at, sort of pornography the way it is, and then they've got access to that, but then they hear about rape stories, and then there's also, sort of pornography that focuses on, sort of what rape could look like and girls being into it, and it gives this sort of false sense. I'm being a little bit confusing, but I think my point is that if it's put in the media more often, I think it normalizes it. And I would hate for, sort of any kind of rape culture to be normalized and just, sort of put into the media just for ratings or just to sell magazines or just to get likes or hits or whatever you want to call it. I don't think it's actually okay for the media to use that type of extreme storyline to get attention. So I think people know it exists, and I think there has to be an awareness of the fact that it exists, but only in certain mediums. I believe the thing that could come out of it and what should be portrayed more is, sort of the normalizing of talking about and reporting these type of incidents to the authorities and whatnot, and seeing hearing about success stories of, sort of this perpetrator was sort of captured and has had a history of sort of rape offences from other people coming forward and whatnot, and there was a conviction based on, sort of witnesses and things coming forward. If that was actually sort of, it's the result of coming forward, it's the action of coming forward, the ease of coming forward, it's the sort of testimony of people coming forward and just saying, this I was able to help me. I was able to heal by doing this, this, and this. Nothing, well, not heal, but, sort of feel better about the fact that justice was served, because there is the memory of that particular event will never leave that person. It'll never be undone. And the only sort of subsequent sort of justice or justification for, sort of the act is actually to come forward and say something to protect someone else, to protect the next generation, to be, to set the standard. Because, the history, I'm making a comparison about the history of racism and how that is passed down from one generation to the next, and the culture, is one down. So if it's the culture that you accept, then it will be the culture that your children accept, and their children and their children. And
Correct.
I just think there has to be a stopping point where we just go, no, this isn't okay, and this is how you should do it. But the media have to also be used in the correct manner to show and educate people on how to do it correctly.
Yes, I understand exactly what you're saying. So
big rant, but yeah.
So when you spoke about the connection, between the cycle of racism being passed down and the cycle of abuse being passed down, patterns of behaviour in families are really hard to break. So how are we going to combat that when we are not in every household? Like, how is that going to be rectified? How does the pattern and the things that are passed down, how does that get changed? Is it up to the new generations to educate themselves more and be more aware, or is it up to the people that are socially aware or have been through abusive situations to then pass on to the next generations? So I listened to this podcast called Armchair Expert, and Dax Shepherd was talking about a situation in which his daughters, and I'm paraphrasing here, so I'm not going to get all the information spot on dead on.
Sure.
I don't know if you've experienced this, but I know I've experienced this a little bit. My parents were actually quite good in this regard, but coming from an Italian-French background, the expectation is when you leave a family event, you go around, or anybody else's house, you go around kissing, hugging everybody and saying, thank you for having me, blah, blah, blah. Now, there was a scenario that Dax spoke about where a friend was over or something like that, and this friend said to one of his daughters, oh, can I have a hug? Like, I'm going, give me a hug goodbye, or can I have a hug, something like that. And his daughter didn't want to. And then this friend was like, oh, what if I give you, I don't know if it was a lolly or whatever, to coax her into giving, a hug or whatever it was. And Dax stopped that, and he was like, this is the beginning of telling young people to go against their gut instinct. And my parents were pretty good. If I didn't want to give somebody a hug or kiss goodbye, I didn't have to. And I know when I go to other people's houses, if their son or daughter doesn't want to give me a hug or kiss goodbye, that's fine. I'll blow them a kiss in the air or wave at them or whatever it is, because I don't want to invade their space. Even if I know the family really well and I've hugged these babies since they were born, once they start getting older and more aware of their own bodies and what they want to do with it, if they don't want to give me a hug or kiss, I'll be like, that's okay, I love you, I'll see you next time, and that's it. I don't make a big deal about it. So I think that's, you know, maybe those little things for little kids, that's where it starts with, you actually don't have to hug and kiss everybody when they come over. It's your body. You can give affection as you see fit. What are your thoughts on that?
Great question. Great subject. I have 4 nieces.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have children of my own. I don't plan on actually having children of my own.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, having 4 nieces. They now age from almost 21 down to 13 years old. And but when they were younger, and the older 2, my brother's girls, when they were younger, the first niece, I was 16 years old when she was born. And so I was sort of younger, I was less educated, and it was a bit of a different time. We were sort of half European, half, Anglo-Saxon kind of generation back on my mother's side. But my dad, came over from Europe when he was very young. And so sort of, same thing, kissing and hugging and whatnot, that was a part of what you do as a family and whatnot. So, that continued throughout sort of with those girls. But my sister's daughters, they grew up in Victoria. And so I didn't see them as often. And so the sort of affection and the face-to-face connection was different. And also I got to only see them maybe once, if I was lucky, twice a year. And that was just their relationship. But it wasn't until that I was a little bit older, and when the older 2 were sort of getting towards sort of 8 or 9, and they were having their own sort of, and I could see their sort of discomfort of just going, sort of, I know you, but at the same time, I feel like I'm hugging or kissing you for the sake of it because it's expected. And so I started to sense that, and I'm just thinking, hang on, there's a choice here that for me to actually want that affection. I'm their uncle, I'm their family, I'm always going to be a part of their life. I don't need to sort of hug, touch, kiss, whatever, those particular people for me to be able to express my love. And I can show that in different ways. And if it makes them feel uncomfortable, that's not love reciprocated, and that then turns into a disrespect. So when I did actually then go see my younger nieces in Victoria, and my youngest niece, she sort of came forward, and she really was a bit wary about sort of, I think men in general was a little bit sort of wary of and whatnot. And I said, would you, do you want to give Uncle Anton a hug? And she was a bit unsure. I said, you don't have to. You absolutely don't have to. And with other people's younger children now that I see, I went to a 6th birthday party recently of a best mate of mine's, and there was other younger children and sort of cousins of that young birthday person, and had only met me the first time that day, had good experiences and interactions with me that day, but at the same time going around the family hugging, they unfamiliar with this new person. I said, "G'day, mate." I even didn't go for or allow the hug, and I was like straight up on high five instead. So just something different. So it took the choice and uncomfortability away from them, but still gave them the feeling of just going, I'm not disregarding you, and that makes me feel more comfortable. Wicked.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that's something that I've sort of learned, but listened to, and sort of been aware, and in using my own intuition of sort of other people's feelings and reactions and whatnot. So
yeah, I think the fact that we are now in society having conversations about being aware of that. Some people are still not fucking aware. Some people are still not aware.
Well, even during COVID times, and sort of touching being questioned with familiar people as well, and we're thinking, well, how do we show it? How do we express these kinds of feelings without touching? Sort of opens up the conversation. So
it does. And look, that's something I'll be honest, because I'm quite an affectionate person. That's something that I have struggled with. Something that COVID has really brought to my forefront of my mind that affection is very important to me with the right people, and obviously consensual, like we were talking about before. How have you dealt with a relationship dissolving?
Sure. I guess I can. My personal experience has ranged and differed throughout, sort of my adult years. I guess I've been through more than one engagement. Starting from my first engagement was when I was 21, and that dissolved within 12 months of us being engaged. But we were engaged 3 months into the relationship, and so I guess there was a maturity of why were we engaged.
Yeah.
And so I asked her to marry me based around the fact that I was proving my love, because it was being questioned by her because I said that I was, my first love, whom I mentioned earlier, back when I was 16, we'd seen that night, and I said, look, I still love her, but not in the way of like, I still want to be with her. It's like, I still have a high amount of respect, but I use the term love. And so when I was actually having that conversation, it was with someone who, the person that I was in, I asked her to marry me on that particular time. She was 19. And so her emotional maturity was different, hence the questioning, hence the result. And yeah, it was sort of all come about really quickly, and she got caught up in the moment, so did I, and then it's all sort of happened and it all became very real. We kept it secret for like 6 months from our families. That should have been the first probably red flag that we knew that maybe this wasn't the best choice for us, but we persisted anyway, because after you sort of put that one out there, it's really hard to take it back. So we, it eventually, we figured out that we weren't kind of into each other, but I think it was me who was less interested in her, and I had to end the relationship later on down the track. And look, I think in the circumstance throughout some of the breakups that I have had, it's if you're the person realizing that the relationship isn't for you, you've more than likely started to let go. And if you've thought about it for more than like a few weeks, then you've already started to emotionally disconnect from that said person. And so your ability to recover from that relationship and from sort of that, it becomes exponentially easier than being the person that when it's actually sort of the other person comes to you and said, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. So, which I have, I've been engaged 3 times, and the last engagement, I was actually the person whom, my ex-partner came to myself and she said, I don't want to be in this relationship anymore. And so I had to deal with that. Throughout that relationship, she had also tried to break up with me several times beforehand, and I was of a kind of background and nature as no, let's work on this, let's talk about it, let's not be reactive, let's just calm down, let's figure it out and talk about it. And most of the time we were able to do so and move on and grow stronger, which I thought was a good foundation for a relationship, because relationships aren't easy, they're hard, and they require work and honesty and openness and communication. So I was all for that. And she caught me on a day that I was really sick, and it had been sort of up and down. We just bought a house within the 6 months beforehand. We have a dog together. There's a lot of different things going on. So we've invested quite a bit into ourselves and each other. And it got to the point of that we were together for 2 years before we were engaged, and then we were engaged for about at least 8 months before she tried to sort of break up with myself. And she said, I don't want to be in a relationship anymore. And I just went, okay. And something inside me just said, look, if you love them, let them go. So I did. And she went to her parents' place and then came back a couple of hours later and then just said, why don't you follow me? I'm like, what? Why are you giving me so much mixed signals? Do you want me to fight for you? Do you not want me to fight for you? Like, are you questioning it because you think my intention in the relationship has changed because I didn't follow you? You're the one breaking it. It got super confusing.
Messy. Yeah.
So and that was another red flag for me, and just going, right, you're now trying to manipulate the situation. So maybe I don't want to be in this relationship as well. And so it just caused me to take a massive back step. We were due to get married 4 months after that, 4 to 5 months after that particular point in time. So we had a lot of things already booked, deposits paid, things like that. There was going to be a massive financial implication to that particular situation. And I'm not saying at any shape or form that should be the determining factor to stay in a relationship or not stay in a relationship. But obviously it falls within the realm of consideration of just going, how hard do I work? Sort of what do I stand to lose, both emotionally and financially? Yes, they do come in as a factor, but it should never be the driving force behind a decision to stay or leave a relationship.
Correct.
So, it was then a 12-month struggle using legal aid. I didn't want to be in another relationship during that time because I didn't want to actually bring anyone else into that fold and that mix of emotions, because I didn't know what would happen from 1 week to the next. From a legal point of view, the relationship became very sort of email, text, black and white based, as in nothing was communicated if we couldn't record it. And it became quite messy, not by my wanting, but it was just what it was. So because we had the investment property together, or the house together, which I now live in, it just became a business conversation.
Sure.
And I mean, the best thing to come out of that relationship was my dog. And so we got him together, and
What kind of doggy do you have?
I have an Australian Shepherd.
Cute. They're lovely dogs.
He is down here. For those people listening, I'm afraid this is a visual medium that I'm sharing.
Oh, very cute. So cute.
But he is the love of my life as far as children goes. I am very blessed, and he is the best part of me. So
that's lovely.
I do enjoy him. But so as far as dealing with that sort of separation, I tried to be as mature as possible. Needless to say, like, she was actually in another relationship 3 weeks later. But she didn't want to be in a relationship
at that
particular point in time. She's now married with him with 2 kids, and I'm very happy for her. And look, it was a decision that she made for herself, and it worked out for her, and that's fine. I have no, sort of qualms with her decision. I'm glad that it was a decision that led to her happiness.
Oh, that's very mature, really beautiful. That's lovely. That's really lovely.
So
my question though, because I have not been in a serious relationship for multiple years,
sure,
I don't quite know, or maybe understand, and maybe it's a lack of self-awareness on my behalf, how people can get so quickly into another serious relationship when I'm yet to meet someone that has the same wants in their life as I do, let alone compatibility. Like, it baffles me. It baffles me.
All right. So I have an opinion on this. Let's just, cover the fact of, all right, for anyone listening to this And for any sort of male sort of people who are single and considering actually being with someone who is an amazing person, I have in front of me via Zoom a beautiful young woman who is such bright young
That's not
creature
what we
with a zest for
asked.
life. And I think she is a perfect candidate. Have the balls, sort of grow some cojones and, sort of get to know this person on some kind of, sort of real level, because I think she's grand. So number... You're very welcome.
That's not where I was going with that, but okay.
I just felt it necessary to cover. She's so red right now in the cheeks. It's adorable.
I am. I'm
so...
oh my God.
So, but number 2, what were we talking about? I think people jump into other relationships because they don't have a comfortable relationship with themselves. Right. I've been known, and you asked some friends of mine who's known me for any longer than 5 years. Mm-hmm. I have gone from one relationship possibly to another possible, sort of extended relationship within a very short space of time. And they will say, or when that eventually or sort of, whatever breaks down, they just go, you didn't have enough time for yourself. And in the moment of when you actually meet someone after you've been in a relationship, you don't know how much you need to heal or how much you want to heal. And you don't know when the time is right that you can even comprehend, how do you measure? Just go, all right, after I've been in this relationship, what is the algorithm, to say that this is the time that I'm allowed to actually openly meet someone and be, sort of willing to show, sort of a decent amount of myself and become vulnerable again. I think it varies for everyone. As a performer, I become a little bit more intuitive, or I'm more connected to emotions because I have to actually draw out emotions in characters and sort of things I do on stage. And so I can connect with different parts of sort of memory and feeling and put them together. And so when I'm coming out of a relationship, I can therefore look within myself. I said, okay, what went wrong? What could have my first thing, what responsibility do I have to why this relationship broke down? It is never about one other person not contributing and it's their fault holistically. It is always takes two to tango. There is always shared responsibility when a relationship breaks down. And I believe it's everyone's responsibility to first reflect, okay, how could I have been different? Or what could I have done differently? And was I true to myself? And if I can walk away from a relationship just going, you know what? I was 100% honest with that person. I, didn't lie, cheat, or anything else like that. I gave them my absolute everything and it still didn't work out. Then you've got a really good case for just saying, look, I reckon I'm not too bad and it just didn't work.
Yeah.
And the other person has some stuff that they need to go through or learn about themselves, or maybe it just didn't work because it wasn't supposed to. And so the amount of time after that relationship might be, exponentially shorter than if the person that you were head over heels in love with, suddenly, sort of cheats on you. And then, sort of disassociates with your personality or changes, in lots of different ways and wants different things. It's different. And I don't think there's any sort of rhyme or reason for sort of leaving a relationship to say that how long of jumping into another one. But I believe there has to be some form of reflection on yourself after a relationship and be okay with that choice of just going, okay, I'm ready. And even if it doesn't work out, you've at least had an honest conversation with yourself beforehand to go, look, based on all the knowledge I have, based on all the experience I have, I made the choice for myself to be in another relationship. And if it didn't work out, it's because I had more lessons to learn.
However, I think a lot of people don't take that time. Even, obviously, I can only speak on my experience and you can only speak on your experiences, but I feel like my patterns in the past have definitely been, I'm quite happy to take all the blame. I'm quite happy to do the work and to fix the problems, even when I know sometimes those problems can only be fixed by the other person. I've probably stayed, the longest relationship I had, I probably stayed in it too long. And that's clearly a self-worth thing. And there's been other people that I've dated that I should have never have dated. Again, self-worth thing.
Absolutely.
And I think you're so right with what you were saying in regards to sometimes it just doesn't work. I don't think in the last 3 years in particular I have been on a date with someone that's gone past the first date. Maybe I've been on 1 or 2 second dates in the last 3 years. And I don't know if it is a self-preservation thing, because in my life in general, Anton, there has been several examples to show me that I'm not worthy of love and not worthy of having, trustworthy people in my life. Like, that's been a life thing, not just a relationship thing.
Sure.
And I guess that repeated story, I've had to take the lessons and stop telling myself that that's going to be on repeat. And maybe because I come across as, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I come across with my shows and how I interact with people as very confident, competent, strong human that is very resilient. And 90% of that is 100% true. That is 100% true. But when it comes to being vulnerable in real life, not on stage, different thing.
Very different.
Yeah, I find it very hard to take down those walls and open myself up to being vulnerable, especially with relationships. Because like I said, history has taught me and my life stories have taught me, if I open up and I'm vulnerable, it's just a matter of time before that's used against me or that person leaves my life, which is a shame and something that I'm really trying to work on. And I guess that's maybe why I haven't been in a serious relationship I've been single longer than my longest relationship. So next year, I would have been single longer than my longest relationship. And I'm at the stage, Anton, where I'm ready for that to change. I've done the work. I think therapy is very important. I've done the therapy.
I very much agree with that. A big custodian and sort of believer in, if you need to find out more about yourself, talk to a professional. There is no harm in it. It's completely sort of private and what have you. And I've found nothing but good things from going to a professional. So yeah, I highly endorse that. And if you're ever thinking about it, don't think anymore. Just book an appointment, go see one. Yeah,
and you can also get free online through
100%.
Beyond Blue. I think there's online services that you can tap into.
Beyond Blue is for men. I think Beyond Blue is highly focused. There's a few other ones that I can't think of right now, but they are out there and they're only a Google search away. So
yes,
please do.
Yes, please do. There are, if it's financials that's stopping you from doing that, dear listener, please, as Anton said, Google, because there are options. Yeah, I think it's interesting how time, see, you know the saying, Anton, time heals all. I don't believe that. I think time gives you different perspective. I don't
Agreed.
necessarily think that it eradicates the situation, or I think it gives perspective, not
Yeah.
takes away or heals all components of whatever the situation is.
What I'm hearing from what you've said and sort of brought up, you're talking about sort of how long has it been in between relationships, sort of when is an acceptable time. These are all sort of forms of measurement in one way or another that we used to convince ourselves, and have been set in some way, shape or form by society as a whole of what is acceptable.
Yes.
I think, and just talking sort of to yourself, measuring the time out of a relationship to your longest relationship, you're really trying to put a number on it. And I ask you, for what reason?
That's a really good question.
What reason is that actually important? Is it determining any positive or negative factor? Why are you using it as a judgment, sort of point
Of myself?
reference? Yeah.
I'll answer it in two parts. So the first one, I think I've really been indoctrinated by family, some members in particular, who I won't name. They'll know who they are if they're listening, that I am not worthy of a relationship. And that is not just stuff that's been implied, that those phrases or phrases like that have been directly said to me. That I have no value, that I'm not established enough in what I'm doing in my career, and the list goes on as to why I'm not worthy of somebody else's time, affection, attention, relationship, investment. Yeah. So there's that's continuously being something that I have to shut out, because I know that's all bullshit. I know that that's bullshit, and that's a reflection on the people that have said that to me.
Correct.
That's about them. That's not about me. And then I think the other reason that I put time on it, and my focus is on that length of time, is because I'm in such a headspace of I'm not interested in a rebound. I'm not interested in something casual. I'm not interested in just because. So because I put that pressure on myself that the next person's got to be the person, I think time tells me, well, I'm not in that rebound phase anymore.
Okay.
That's what time tells me. Whether or not that's right or wrong, that's just me, I guess.
So do you think that, that is perfectly sort of a reason, and you don't want to sort of have that kind of style of relationship, and so, there's a subconscious or even sort of cognitive thought process around the next person. And so when you do go on a date, or you are talking to a prospective, sort of person for either the first time, or, having a date, or even the second date, there's already an inherent amount of pressure that you are putting on yourself, and without knowing it, because in those situations, like you said, you do have a certain amount of vulnerability. You are expressing and showing that in either your body language, or the way you talk, or what question line that you actually follow, and that can in turn either make the other person feel uncomfortable, depending on sort of their maturity level, understanding of themselves, and so on and so forth. But it can sort of have probably the opposite effect of what you're trying to achieve in that situation. And so in my sort of experience of dating, and especially app sort of dating and whatnot, I jump on the front foot when I'm first starting to talk to the other person, because I believe it's assumed that when you're actually talking to the other person, that you always believe the other person is more confident than you, because only you can listen to the voices and sort of the put downs and stuff that goes on inside your head, and you're expecting a negative to come from everything because of your past experiences, of your past sort of exchanges on these particular types of mediums, that you think you're just waiting for it to go bad. And so you're almost trying to preempt what might not be there. And so that guard goes up. And so, you're trying to remain not vulnerable, whilst at the same time, inherently, you are in a very vulnerable position. So I try to break down those walls by being vulnerable and just throwing it out there, just going, this is who I am. This is a crazy thing that happened to me in my experience that, isn't, good. For example, when we started talking, within the first few sentences, we started talking about past relationships and the fact that, I'd been engaged multiple times. And, to someone new to a conversation and new to a person, you could look at that in a negative light, but it's something very personal about myself that could be deemed as, letting you in and seeing me as a vulnerable person, knowing that I've actually been through some shit, knowing the fact that I've had some experience with, love and loss. And so I'm not ashamed of that. And if that is the determining factor between someone talking to me and not continuing the conversation, then I'm not meant to have a conversation with that person.
All we can be is ourselves, really, to the best of our ability, and wherever the casualties lie, I guess.
So I think putting on a strong and confident, sort of foot forward is important when sort of starting and meeting new people and, sort of showing your best self. But putting up a mask to say, if you want to put a bit of makeup on and accentuate certain features, or you want to wear that special outfit because, it makes your butt look good, or, that's a, sort of enhancing, it makes you more confident within yourself. Do not use these features to sort of cover up what is inside you. Use them to accentuate your confidence and your personality, is what I can probably encourage. But yeah, sort of never mask who you really are and your experiences, and the right person will appreciate them and be able to respond in kind.
Delightful. And I think that's partly why for me, the apps just didn't work. And I'd rather wait for life to just bring something spectacular to me without me looking, or... You know what I mean?
I've never had a successful, sort of long relationship from an app. I know people that have, and good luck to them. And I know there's a certain amount, if you're talking numbers, certain amount of statistics that can say that it does work. And you could, all the apps, spoke about the fact of how many find love per day, based on their apps and statistics to be able to get you in. There has to be a selling point for them to work.
Correct.
And I believe if you chuck enough numbers and chuck enough people at a situation, you're going to come out with some kind of positive number towards it. But as far as the ratio or the percentage is concerned, I'm willing to put money on the fact that it isn't a large percentage of people who actually find love from this that is sustainable and long-lasting.
Correct. Would you like to leave our listeners with any more parting words of wisdom, Anton?
Look, I think I've imparted quite a bit of my experience during this conversation. It's been fantastic.
Thank you for being so open. It's been fantastic.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. I think, just if you are out there as a single person, know your weaknesses and your strengths. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Don't put the same photo up on Facebook repeatedly with different filters. But get out there, talk to people, be open, be honest. From being a nice person, you are not going to lose anything. No one ever hated a nice person. So be the best possible version of yourself. And if you can't, or if you don't feel like that, talk to your friends, talk to your family. Do not feel like that you're going to be a burden. The right people, surround yourself with the right people that make you feel good. And in turn, I know you will make them feel good. So do never feel like you're actually being a burden to those around you by talking about your problems. That is the only way that you are going to get better and that you're going to feel good about yourself and be able to get out there and make positive connections with other people. So keep looking on the bright side of things. There is always hope and there is always love around you. You just need to be a positive positivity breeds positivity, negativity breeds negativity. So be the best positive person that you can and good things will happen.
And seek help if you need to.
Absolutely, indeed, yes.
Bravo. Thank you very much, Anton. And I'm sure we will speak soon. Thank you, sir.
No worries. Look forward to it. Thanks very much and great for listening. Thanks, guys.
The Bachelorette with friends near and far, from heartache to catfish and sex toys. The Bachelorette and friends. See you next time if you dare.
Bank of the West is offering the 1% for the Planet checking account. It gives back 1% of the account's net revenue to the planet at no cost to you. There's no monthly service charge with any deposit per statement, and there's no minimum balance required. The 1% for the Planet checking account, only from Bank of the West. Learn more at bankofthewest.com/1%. Additional conditions apply. Member FDIC.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to AuscastNetwork.com for details.